What's up, everybody? Callie Moore here from InHalton.com, and I have the longest running mayor in all of Canada with me, Gordon Krantz, the mayor of Milton. How you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you. And, Happy New Year, as belated as it might be to all our listeners out there. Look forward to our interview. And of course, what this is all about is keeping the listeners involved and keeping them appraised of what's going on, not only in Milton here or in Halton, but across this great province of Ontario and, of course, across this great country of Canada.
Awesome. So let's get started. I've got a lot of questions for you. It's been about 2 months since I talked to you last. Are there more community centers and recreation centers that are going to be built in Milton?
The short answer to that is yes.
Okay.
The long answer is probably when. And of course, the almighty dollar plays into a lot of what we do or don't do. And as a matter of fact, we just approved the budget last night. When I say last night, on January 23rd, 2023 for the upcoming year. So there is stuff involved in there and infrastructure. And of course, as the community grows, so does the infrastructure, such as the facilities that you and I are talking about. Are they on the immediate future, say starting in the next month or two or this year? Not so, but they are coming.
Okay, perfect. One question I get in Milton all the time is, when is a Costco going to be built in Milton? When is a Costco going to be built in Milton?
Yeah, the odd part of that is private enterprise. They got to figure it out a lot better than what us politicians do. And of course, it's called competition. As an example, and I've said this publicly on more than one occasion, I would personally, I'd like to see Costco here, but they know the people right now from Milton are driving to Burlington and or Mississauga to shop. So why would they locate here when people are shopping in their stores anyway? That's really bottom line. But at least in my opinion, I know that they have been looking in Milton for quite some time. Land is very expensive in Milton, but of course, Costco is a pretty big outfit, and I'm sure they could afford to locate here in Milton. But it's called a business decision. And I get the same thing as an example. Of course, we've got Wendy's and Harvey's and all those, but we got no Burger King.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, why not a Burger King? And I said, well, it's the same thing as Costco. Sooner or later, I suspect that they'll be locating in Milton here. But I get that quite frequently, as a matter of fact.
Now, are we enticing Costco to come here? Have you talked to them, or has anybody talked to them?
Oh yeah, our economic development people, they're testing the waters all the time, as a matter of fact. They've done their homework, there's no question about it. But like you heard me say there before, it's just a matter of time likely when they locate here as the population grows. And as an example, I'll use the Burlington store. I personally don't shop in Costco, but I got family that does. And they drive to Burlington all the time, and I get it even from my immediate family. I'd sooner stay in Milton and shop than drive to Burlington to Costco. Sooner or later, that's going to happen. I'm certain of that.
Awesome. So I read a lot of Milton forums and stuff like that, and some residents are complaining about synchronization of traffic lights. Have you heard anything about this? And is there an issue with synchronization of traffic lights in Milton?
Really, there's no issue with it. Many of our lights, if not all of them, are synchronized. They're not synchronized to everybody, including my satisfaction. As an example, now I'll use, Regional Road 25, or known to us in Milton here as Ontario Street, where there's probably from start to finish, Steeles Avenue going down to Jerry Road, there's probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 traffic lights, give or take. And they all, I know, are synchronized. And of course, they're synchronized to the average flow of traffic. All you have to do is get an individual that's traveling a little too slow, or for that matter, maybe a little too fast as well. And all of a sudden, guess what that does to the majority of traffic? It either slows it down or speeds it up. And then, of course, you're ahead of the synchronization. So, but on some of the major streets, as an example, they're all synchronized. Some of the others, not so much. So if you start getting in smaller areas, and again, I'll use, say, Louis Saint Laurent or Laurier Avenue, where there's maybe 3 or 4 lights there. When you got stop signs, four-way stop signs, that throws out automatic synchronization as well. There's nothing any nicer, and I'm a driver, I drive a fair bit. There's nothing any nicer than going down, say, Ontario Street or Highway 25 and catching every green light. Boy, that's great traffic flow. But I also know I've been down there when I've had to stop at everyone too. So you say, what's wrong with the synchronization? It's timing is what it is.
Okay, awesome.
Well, I hear about it frequently.
Can you give us an update on the Campbellville Quarry?
Yeah, I can only, there's still legal questions and confidentiality around that as well. And we, and not this present day council, but the last council of 4 years ago, we were criticized on the odd occasion on going behind closed doors, as I call it, on the advice of our lawyers, on the confidentiality of it. And I can only speak personally.
Okay.
I'm still personally, and I'm only suspecting the biggest majority of council, if not unanimous, as it was in the last council, was very supportive of the quarry not going ahead in opposing it. So I suspect that that's would be the present position of at least the majority of this present day council. But keeping in mind that doesn't share a lot with the confidentiality, and again, the province is still dealing with this, and it may or may not be into the to the courts eventually. But that's where that is, and I can only speak personally that I'm still opposed on what's being proposed, and leave it at that.
Awesome. All right. Last we heard about the CN Intermodal facility was a decision by the Ontario Supreme Court of Justice, which will allow the hub to be built. What's the latest on this?
And again, believe it or not, it's still being challenged legally. And I'm well aware of what's happened federally and provincially in the court system. And I do know that CN is still proceeding it. I'd refer to it as a snail's pace without all the, in my opinion, final approvals. And one of the things that's really odd about this, it's already been proven. If this goes ahead, there is detrimental health effects to that portion of the community.
Okay.
And what's being thought and what's being suggested by the courts and other leaders at the federal level especially, well, try and cut a deal. And I only use these numbers to illustrate. And it's already proven that there will be detrimental health effects. So, well, if it's really, really bad, there might be 1,000 people die, and I'm being extreme now. So let's cut a deal maybe where there's only 500 people going to die instead of 1,000 people. I want no part of that type of negotiations. And, and where a lot of this lies too right now, and again, I just talk about certain environmental things. Well, they say, well, the municipality of the town of Milton or the region of HALTON, you have to monitor, you have to control all these factors. And I don't think that that's right and proper on something that could have not potential negative impact, but a definite, that's been proven already by the health authorities, that it'll definitely have a detrimental effect on the health and well-being of people in that immediate area. I'm not prepared to go there and say, well, I'll support a half measure. I don't want it there, period. I rather suspect majority council is still on that wavelength. This new council has not talked about it.
Okay. The two-way all-day Milton Go. What's the latest on that?
Well, I don't know. In my opinion, I think Metrolinx to some degree, I wouldn't go so far as say dragging their feet. And I know they're pressed for that almighty dollar. But again, it's just a matter of time until we get the all day. And we've been advocating this for at least 5 or 7 years, very seriously, for sure. And I think as the population grows, and it will, the densities get here, especially around the GO stations, and that's happening as you and I speak. So it's just a matter of time again until we get all day two-way go. And it won't only affect Milton, but even further west, you start getting into the Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo area. It's going to affect those, because even going as far west as London. It'll all connect through that main line that runs through Milton with CP.
Awesome. Can you give me an update on Tremaine Road project? Will Milton have a new interchange on Highway 401?
Yes, it will. That's a definite yes. The only question is right now, what's the timing for that to open? A good portion of new Tremaine Road is already open, but it's not connected yet to the 401. And what the holdup is, I really don't know. A good portion of it's already constructed there too, but it definitely will happen. And it'll help some of the other roads such as Seals Avenue, Dairy Road, Britannia Road, and bypassing some of that traffic, and again off the James Snow Parkway and Highway 25 401 interchange when that opens up. And it's just a little bit further west of Highway 25 where the new interchange is. They're going to be to connect. It'll connect, as an example, if you're heading to Burlington or Hamilton, you'll bypass around Milton a fair bit and head around there. So it definitely will be better for traffic flow. There's no question about it. And I'm hoping it might be later 2023 or the latest 2024. Okay,
perfect. One thing, this is more just every time I go to the velodrome, I always see Laurier sign.
Yes.
Is there an update on the Laurier? I don't see any trucks there.
No, well, again, I've been only dealing with this now for some, 12, 15 years. So, you don't want to rush into things. But on the serious side, it's a done deal now. Okay. It's a done deal. Laurier is definitely coming to Milton and on the campus that you referred to. And so is Conestoga College. Conestoga College is, I think, maybe a little bit ahead of what Laurier might be right now. The Conestoga College, which will be a partner out there as well with the Milton Education Village. They have recently purchased a building in the 401 Industrial Park. They're starting already to set up a campus there now. So they got a presence in Milton already. So Laurier and Conestoga will, in 10 years' time, they'll be probably one of the bigger campuses, colleges, or universities in the province of Ontario. Not to suggest it'll be their main campus, but it'll be one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, and that's when you could raise the track rates to about 100. So I'm kidding.
Yeah, hopefully that won't happen, because one of the things that I definitely am known for is bottom line and trying to keep taxes as low as we possibly can without impacting negatively service. There's a fine balance in there, and I'm well aware that Milton has one of the lower property tax bases in the Greater Toronto area, and as long as I'm around, I intend to keep it that way. I also know that Canada, and that includes you and me as Canadians, we're one of the highest tax countries there is in the world. So I try to do my best to not wear that, too proudly around my neck as being the highest nation in the world for taxation.
Milton residents, there's I guess, parking on the street issue. They call parking control to complain, and by the time they get there, the car's already gone. Is there anything that can be done with that?
Oh, you could do anything. And again, you could grow your bureaucracy where you've got one person for every car that's in Milton. Now I'm being a little extreme on that. So yeah, there's a balance there, the affordability of it. And the odd part of it is parking on streets, and this is really quite odd, but very true for most people. A new family moves into Milton, or it could be an old family. They buy a new home, and it's automatic that you have at least 2 parking spots. Okay, you have at least your garage and 1 spot in your driveway. Well, if most people are like me, I don't park my car in the garage. I got junk in my garage, but I also know in my personal laneway, I can park 4 cars. Maybe I'm one of the fortunate ones, but I also know where people have 2 cars, 1 garage, one laneway. They got 2 cars, and what do they do with the second car? They leave it on the street. So why don't you take the junk out of your garage and put your car in there? Well, I don't want to do that. Well, believe it or not, that's one scenario, and it's true. The other scenario is young family moves in, they got 2 or 3 children, they're maybe 8, 10 years old. Well, kids do grow up and they do become 16, and most 16-year-olds anymore want to have a driver's license, and not only driver's license, they want to buy a car. So mom and dad already has a car. Mom is parking in the garage, dad is parking in the driveway, doing what responsible people should be doing. And of course comes along Junior, he's got a new car. Now all of a sudden you got 3 cars. Where do you put the 3rd car? Well, now you got a problem. You've only got 2 parking spots. So this is where the problem is. Not only that, but if there's 2 or 3 young adults, then of course all of a sudden you got 4 or 5 cars, which of course compounds the problem. Believe it or not, that's part of the problem. We do have flexibility and permit parking on the streets for a certain period of time, but the odd part of it is it's abused as well. And the odd part of it is when you get a neighbor that complains about their next door neighbor parking on the street, and that's where it becomes a neighborhood, a neighbor on neighbor thing. Believe it or not, that's where you run into the. And I've had to get involved in the odd one of those where there's almost fisticuffs because of things there. So it's not an easy one. And of course, this time of the year, and we're talking about, snowfalls. I have no sympathy whatsoever. And if it's summertime, big deal as far as I'm concerned, if you're parked on the street.
Sure.
Streets should be swept and there. And if cars park there all the time, you can't sweep the street, but snow plowing is a different thing there too. So, especially these winter months, you should not be on the street. Make arrangements with your next door neighbor. Assume you get along reasonably well with them, because I do know there are seniors that do not have a car. So
Sure.
They got rides and they have a laneway. And I do know reasonable neighbors do make deals with one another on, along the parking driveway. So that's the secret to success on the parking issues.
Awesome. 2 more questions here. I know this is not just a Milton problem. This is more of a Southern Ontario problem, but it's hard to get a rental unit, in Milton, Mississauga, anywhere. Can the city of Milton help with, kind of affordable rental units?
At the regional level, there's subsidies there for people that are really up against it. And again, at the local level, we can promote, we can encourage all those things. Say the development community, and not only the development community, say an individual like you and I, if we had a few dollars to invest in a rental property. And again, keeping in mind rental, and I was in that business. I, at one point in time, my wife and I, we had as many as 22, 23 rental units, even though we, dispose of those, still have one rental unit. It's a farmhouse where there's 2 rental units in it there. So rental is a business. At least what you hope to do is cover your costs. And of course, if you're a business person, you hope to make a little bit of profit out of it too. That's just the reality of it there. So as far as I'm concerned, the average person that owns, say, a big apartment building or whatever, you should not be attempting to gouge the public. And I do know that does happen. I'm well aware of that. Supply and demand. And of course, the demand is much greater than the supply. Now, and again, going back when my wife and I were in that, there was probably much more supply than there was demand. So you had to keep your rents at a reasonable rate or you were not going to rent them. It's just the opposite now, unfortunately. So that old case of supply and demand is what drives things.
And let's talk about, I've had 3 of my friends got their cars stolen. It's not an issue until, it happens to, people around you or yourself. But obviously, Mississauga's is absolutely crazy. 6,000 cars stolen last year. But Milton had 259 cars stolen last year in 2022. Can anything be done to combat this?
Yeah, well, I think as far as I'm concerned, my next door neighbor, albeit it's a year or 2 ago, had his car stolen as well, very much to his surprise and mine as well. I think we can take protective measures, and I'm probably as bad as the average individual. I could have one of those steering wheel things locked on there, which would, deter, I guess, certain amount. Keep your keys away from your front door, put them in a secure spot. And there's other methods that I'm not too familiar with to protect your automobile there too. But I'm well aware of what you spoke about there. As an example, pickup trucks. I think the week or two ago there was, I think about 10 or 12 in less than a 24-hour period stolen in Milton, where they were targeting a certain brand and a certain type of pickup truck. So I know one of the people personally well. That person didn't have theirs targeted, but they took a few more precautions to make sure that their pickup truck wasn't one of the ones that was getting stolen. And that's the secret to it.
Yeah, and I would say clean your garage and park it in the garage, right?
Most definitely, that's definitely a deterrent as well, for sure. And the other part of it is most newer garages, and of course some of the pickup trucks that I'm talking about are fairly good size, and I think it might be rather difficult to get those pickup trucks maybe in the average garage anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, true. Well, Gordon, thanks so much for your time. Is there anything you want to talk about, mention, say thank you?
No, and again, once again, just wishing all our listeners out there a very happy new year and much success. Again, Milton Council, we did pass the budget on January 23rd with an increase, which I didn't support, of 7.99. Let's round it off at 8% for the local levy, but majority council seemed fit to pass that with a blended rate, both education and regional and local. You get around 4.5%, give or take, in that range there. So it will have an impact on the average property taxpayer, probably in excess of $100 on average to the average property taxpayer in Milton. So that's the latest. And I am well aware that at the present time inflation is running roughly around 6%. So yeah, stay tuned.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Mayor of Milton, Gordon Krantz, thank you so much for your time.
And thank you. And we'll talk again next month to keep the public informed as to what we're doing here in Milton and HALTON.
Awesome. I can't wait for the Burger King and the Whopper.
Yeah, same here.
All right. Take care.